Welcome to another Fear Lore Interesting Tales. Click the like, share, and subscribe button to keep you updated for more. I thought I was alone. It all started with little things. Things so small you'd dismiss them, blame them on a faulty memory or a drafty old house. I'd come home from work and the book on my nightstand, the one I was sure I'd left face down, would be closed, a bookmark peeking out from a chapter I hadn't reached yet. Keys, which I always, without fail, hung on the hook by the door, would be sitting on the kitchen counter. I'd shrug, tell myself I was just tired, overworked, my mind playing tricks on me. Then the sounds began. A floorboard creaking upstairs when I was downstairs. The soft, almost inaudible click of a door latching shut in the dead of night. At first I blamed the house settling, the wind, the neighbor's cat. I bought a white noise machine, hoping to drown out the building's groans. But the sounds persisted, weaving themselves through the static hum. They became more distinct, the whisper-soft scrape of a chair being pushed back from a table, the faint, rhythmic tap-tapping from inside my closet. I started sleeping with the lights on. One evening I was cooking dinner. I had a pot of water boiling on the stove, and I turned my back for just a moment to grab some pasta from the pantry. When I turned back, the burner was off. The water was still. Not simmering, not steaming, just still. My blood ran cold. I lived alone. I had lived in this house for 3 years, completely and utterly alone. There was no one else who could have turned it off. I checked all the doors and windows. They were locked, just as I'd left them. I called out, my voice trembling, "Is anyone there?" The only answer was the thumping of my own heart. The misplaced objects became more personal. A photograph of my parents on the mantelpiece was turned to face the wall. A single strand of long, dark hair, mine is blonde and short, was coiled on my pillow. I started taking pictures of rooms before I left the house, just to prove to myself I wasn't going crazy. I'd come home, compare the new scene to the photo on my phone, and find the differences. A coffee mug moved from the sink to the drainer. The television remote angled just slightly differently on the arm of the sofa. It was a slow, creeping violation. Someone was in my space, touching my things, living alongside me like a ghost, but this felt heavier than a ghost. It felt real. The nights were the worst. I'd lie awake for hours, straining my ears, listening for that telltale creak or tap. Sometimes I'd drift off, only to be jolted awake by the feeling of the mattress dipping beside me, as if someone had just sat down. I'd fling my hand out into the darkness, but there was never anything there, just cold, empty air. The sheer terror of it was suffocating. It was a psychological war, and I was losing. My home, my sanctuary, had become a prison. I felt constantly watched, a specimen under a microscope. One day I found a half-eaten apple on the kitchen table. It was fresh, the flesh still white, not yet browned by the air. I hadn't eaten an apple in weeks. I threw it in the trash, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it. That was the moment my fear turned into something colder, something more determined. I needed to know who or what was in my house. I decided to set up a camera, a small one, hidden on a bookshelf in the living room, pointing towards the kitchen and the hallway. I left for work the next day, my stomach in knots. The entire day was a blur of anxiety. All I could think about was the footage waiting for me at home. When I finally got back, I didn't even take my coat off. I went straight to the camera, pulled out the memory card and plugged it into my laptop. My hands trembled as I clicked play. The first few hours were just me, leaving for work in the morning, a sped-up version of sunlight moving across the floor. Then, about an hour after I left, the back door, the one leading from the kitchen to the garden, creaked open. I froze. I always triple-checked that lock. A figure stepped inside. It wasn't a monster, not a ghost. It was a person dressed in my clothes. One of my old hoodies, a pair of my jeans. Their face was gaunt. Their hair was matted. But the most terrifying part, the face was mine. It was a perfect, twisted reflection of me. I watched horrified as this doppelganger moved around my house. It made a sandwich, ate the apple, sat on my sofa, and read my book, carefully placing the bookmark inside. It moved with a quiet familiarity, as if it had lived here forever. It would pause sometimes, tilting its head as if listening for something, a faint, unsettling smile on its face. It would go upstairs out of the camera's view, and then I'd hear the faint creaks and taps that had been tormenting me for months. The video continued. I watched as it tidied up, washing its plate and putting it away. It walked over to the photograph of my parents and carefully turned it to face the wall. It did all the little things that had been driving me to the brink of insanity. It was living a parallel life in my own dark echo of my own existence. The most chilling part was near the end of the recording, just before I was due to come home. The double walked over to the back door, but before it left, it turned and looked directly at the bookshelf, directly at the hidden camera. It smiled, a wide, knowing, terrible smile, and raised a hand in a slow, deliberate wave. Then it slipped back out the door, closing it silently behind it. I sat there, paralyzed, the laptop screen glowing in the dark room. The wave. It knew I was watching. It had been playing a game with me all along. The sounds, the objects, it was all for me, a performance. My phone buzzed on the table. A text from an unknown number. I opened it, my fingers numb. It was a single picture. A picture of me right now, sitting at my laptop, my face pale with terror, illuminated by the screen. The photo was taken from the hallway, from inside the house. I slowly raised my head from the screen and looked towards the dark, gaping maw of the hallway. From the shadows I heard a soft, familiar whisper. "Did you like the show?" And then a floorboard creaked just a few feet away. I'm not alone. I've never been alone, and now it knows that I know. The game has changed, and I don't think I'm going to win. Part 2. It learned my Name didn't notice it right away. That's how it works. When something dangerous learns you, it doesn't announce success. It waits until the knowledge feels normal. The first time I heard Heidi was half asleep. That soft, floating state where your thoughts don't belong to you yet. I heard my name, not spoken, placed, like it had been set gently into the room. No emotion behind it, no urgency, just familiarity. Why I knew IT wasn't a diarrhea and dreams don't pause afterward. This did. The air held still, waiting, as if expecting a response. I didn't answer. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe properly, and the name wasn't greeted. That was worse. The way IT used my Aneamate never called for me. It didn't try to get my attention. It used my name the way you'd label a box, to identify, to catalog. The house changed after T checked not visibly, but functionally. Doors closed more softly. Floors stopped creaking where they used to. The house had learned my tolerance, my thresholds. It had refined itself around me. The sound becomes PRSON footsteps matched my pace. Not followed, mirrored. If I stopped, the sound stopped. If I sat, the pressure shifted to sit with me. It wasn't pretending to be human. It was learning me. The mirrored test, Folletti tried to catch it again. Watched reflections obsessively, corners of glass, shiny surfaces, nothing. Then one night, the mirror showed my room perfectly, too perfectly, every detail aligned, except my reflection blinked a fraction too late. The first time it touched my space, I woke up to find my phone charging. I never leave it plugged in overnight. The cable was wrapped neatly, carefully, like it didn't want to inconvenience me. That's when I realized something critical. It wasn't curious anymore. It was considerate. Why that terrified enemy predators rush? Parasites adapt, but companions learn comfort. And comfort creates permission. The question I should never have Esquiti whispered into the dark. What do you want? The house reacted immediately, not loudly, not violently. The air pressed closer. The silence thickened. The response wasn't verbal. It was understanding, to remain. The truth about its PATINC, it didn't want control. It didn't need fear. It wanted access, unchallenged, unquestioned, permanent. The way IT stayed out of Fiji-et never stood where I could face it. It existed in transition spaces, doorways, hallways, the moment between turning your head and finishing the movement, places humans never fully see. The night I heard IT move freely, stayed awake on purpose, lights on, music playing, fear buzzing under my skin, and still it moved, unrestricted, confident, because now it knew the rules of me. The moment I realized it wasn't alone, IT cheer, there were pauses, gaps in its presence, moments where the house felt briefly empty, then fuller than before, as if it checked in with something else, or something else checked in with it. The name AGA this time clearer, closer, from inside the room. My name spoken the way I say it. Accent, cadence, ownership. That was the night I stopped sleeping. Why I left two LAT people think leaving solves things. It doesn't. Leaving just teaches something how to follow patterns. I took my habits with me, my routines, my silences, and whatever learned me, learned them too. The final admissione don't think it lives in houses. I think houses make it easier. I think it lives in familiarity. And once something knows your name well enough, it doesn't need to be close anymore. Write a no, W, if you're listening to this alone, and your name feels heavier than usual, like it's being considered. Don't answer. Not out loud, not in your head, because the moment something uses your name correctly, it's already closer than you think.